Welcome, everyone, and thanks for joining. We'll wait just a few minutes until everyone is able to get on. It's always fun to watch the number of participants increasing.
Yes.
And as you're coming in, if you'd like to chat with us where you're joining us from today, that would be excellent. We love to see how we reach everyone across the country, so feel free to chat in. And we'll get started in just a moment. For those of you just joining, please feel free to chat in where you're joining us from. And I think we will get started now. So thanks to all of you who are joining us for today's webinar, Excellence in Leadership at the Senior Care and Living Community. This is part of the Spotlight series hosted by the Advancing Excellence in Long-Term Care Collaborative, and I'm Penny Cook, the current board chair of Advancing Excellence. Our goal in this year-long series is really to bring you information on relevant topics, really from diverse perspectives, as this is one of the greatest benefits of the Advancing Excellence Collaborative. We have great diversity in organizations, associations, companies, and also points of view. And we gather under Advancing Excellence because we're committed to effecting change in long-term care. If you missed the first in this series that we are calling the Spotlight series, we talked about special needs plans in long-term care. And you can find that recording on our website, advancingexcellence.org, under the events tab. And the recording for this session will be there after a few days. And all of you who have registered will get a link to the recording as well. Today's presentation really is an example of what we're trying to put forward of Advancing Excellence. We know that many organizations are experiencing workforce challenges, some like they have never experienced before. And we know that having a strong workforce culture impacts the quality of care and services provided, and that's driven by a solid leadership team. And so this webinar will explore the importance of leadership in senior living and care communities through a variety of perspectives. Our panel, thank them very much, our panel of respected leaders will discuss the opportunities for leadership, development, and support at the community level to both improve and sustain individuals and teams. We'll also explore the current environment and challenges for today and the opportunities for moving forward. And we want you to be a part of the discussion. So please use the Q&A function for questions and use the chat for discussion amongst yourselves and the sharing of resources. We have time left at the end where we will take questions, but feel free as you think of those to put them in the question and answer box on the bottom of your screen. And so with that, I'd like to get started, and I'm pleased to introduce the moderator for today's session, Kevin Whitehurst. Kevin is the Senior Vice President of Skilled Nursing for Matrix Care. Welcome, Kevin.
Thank you, Penny. Welcome, and welcome to all of our guests today. We're excited to be here. Such an exciting topic on leadership. I'd like to first introduce our panel. I'd like to start with Doug Olson. He's the President and CEO of Vision Center. It's a leadership development for aging services. Hi, Doug. And Dr. Kimberly Townsend. She's the President and CEO of Laredo. And you're on mute.
Good afternoon.
Hi, and then we have Allison Berwin. She's the Regional Vice President of National Healthcare Corporation. Hi, Allison.
Hi, Kevin. Thanks for having me this afternoon.
Great to have you. And then we have Nick Williams, the COO of Health Services from Pruitt Health. Thanks for joining, Nick.
It's doing great. Good afternoon, Kevin. Nice to join you here from the lovely state of Georgia.
Excellent. So we have some exciting information to share, and we're going to have this panel talk about 4 really key areas or topics. And we want to focus on, firstly, making the case for the importance of leadership and the talent and stability of the team. And then we want to talk about what we recommend, some of the recommended critical areas of focus for the team, and just highlighting a core set of competencies. Then we want to explore leadership development opportunities with both internal and external approaches. And then we're going to suggest some practical tips and insights for moving forward at your own community. So each of the panelists have been champions of leadership and leadership development in their organizations. So we're really excited to have all of you here. And so let's go ahead and roll into our discussion. And I would like to begin with Kim Townsend. And we're going to talk about making that case for the importance of leadership and the talent and stability of the team. So why don't we begin, Kimberly, have you describe your role in your organization and how leadership excellence really fits into your strategy?
Great. Thank you, Kevin, and welcome everyone. Such an honor to be here with you today. I'm Kim Townsend, and I'm president and CEO of Loretto. And Loretto is a large multi-site post-acute health system that offers the full continuum of care from the hospital to the home. So we have skilled nursing, we have acute rehab, we have short-term rehab, we have housing across 8 different program types. We also have a large PACE program and a foundation. We serve more than 10,000 individuals a year, 72% who are Medicaid eligible, so we are a safety net provider. And we do that with the support of 2,400 dedicated caregivers. 65% of our frontline caregivers are women of color who are coming from some of the most highly impoverished zip codes in the United States. So as we talk today, I think we all know that our industry has been particularly hard hit with workforce shortages during the pandemic. If you read the studies that are reported in McKnight's, we see that we lost 400,000 long-term care workers during the pandemic. And unlike workers in other areas, our workers are slow to return. So I think that makes the leadership imperative so much more important in our sector than it can be in other places. And at Loretto, our philosophy is that leadership exists at all levels of our organization because we believe that leadership is not about a title, it's a way of being. And so we believe there are formal and informal leaders across our system who have a positive impact on our mission. So our job is then to seek to identify and develop leadership traits in all of our employees, which includes emotional intelligence, critical thinking skills, creative problem solving, active listening, and intentional communications. And studies have shown that people don't leave organizations, they leave their managers and their coworkers. So we really work to create a sticky environment where people feel seen, heard, and valued, and where they feel like they're part of something that's bigger than themselves, bigger than their titles, and part of a team that's all trying to achieve a noble mission.
Excellent. That sounds so worthwhile. So Kimberly, can you tell us some of the things that Loretto has implemented to emphasize the importance of leadership?
Yes. So a recent McKinsey study found that 86% of workers' satisfaction relies on their relationship with their direct manager. So we've just completed 2 large pilot programs focused on developing our managerial leadership at Loretto. So the first program is a frontline supervisor leadership class, and that focuses intensively on communication, on team building, and on supervisory skills, particularly in a VUCA environment, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous.
Okay.
Our second class was for managers and directors, and it really builds on that strong foundation of people skills but it also offered them conflict resolution, how to further build strong teams and communication skills. Plus, we did a deeper dive into business operations of long-term care, things like regulatory, legal, financial underpinnings. And participants also engaged at the end of that class on strategic planning exercises within their cohorts, and they also received one-on-one personal coaching. So we were very excited about those programs, so excited that we are now developing a new leader program, and that would be for frontline supervisors or managers who were in their role 1 year or less. And that will be in a boot camp type format, and that will provide critical skills that they need to lead teams based on Loretto's culture and the practices that we have here at Loretto. And as a people leader, we're going to be providing that to internal candidates as well as new hires in, because we know that that new leader is frequently now tasked with managing people who were formerly co-workers and friends. And so that can be a difficult bridge to navigate. And we want to make sure that they're fully resourced to be able to do that.
That's excellent. So sort of going back to, why leadership is important to your organization. And you talked a little bit about how COVID had such an impact in the staffing. For the other panelists, did you see this as a similar challenge for you? I know we hear from many providers about, COVID and the pandemic and its impact on staffing. And did it have as profound an impact on your leadership as well?
I could take this as Nick Williams. I'll introduce myself a little bit better, I guess, in the coming slides, or coming minutes. But from us, almost the association meetings to me, when you say staffing challenges, are like therapy sessions with your peers, when you're able to talk through all the challenges that everybody went through and still go through. I think everybody's coming up with creative ways to address it themselves. But I just would like to add that for everybody on the call, because I know it's hard to get out of this pandemic mentality into this post-pandemic mentality to keep things moving. But we all share shared experiences, I would say, and challenges that were almost you couldn't even think of them in 2020, January of 2020. But we're seeing the end of the tunnel, at least from my perspective. And our numbers at Pruitt Health are starting to get better, but we're all here for you, I guess is what I'm saying. So yes, we share similar experiences.
Excellent. So Kim, when you look at the challenges and those leadership programs that you described sound really excellent. What are you doing? How are you able to stabilize those leaders once you get them in place, once you get them properly trained and oriented? How are you securing that talent and just stabilizing the leadership team, because that's just as important, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so given the headwinds that we've been facing coming out of the pandemic with recruiting, and right now we have over 500 open positions. So we knew that we needed to be more nimble and to evolve our recruiting practices and our focus on critical resources and skills that were needed in the HR organization of the future. So with the help of a strategic partner, we undertook a year-long HR transformation project where we mapped all of our HR processes, payroll, benefits, labor, recruiting, talent development, to make sure that we were leaner, faster, and really focused on the critical needs, particularly of our frontline staff. And so this critical work resulted in a number of changes in how we recruit, hire, and onboard people.
Okay.
Most significantly was we created an employee shared service center, truly a one-stop shop for our employees so that they had one point of contact in terms of meeting all their HR needs. And this was something that was very helpful to our employees, and they've been very positive about. In addition to that, we also, right prior to the pandemic, but during the pandemic, added to and expanded our employee coaching program. So we have 3 licensed social workers who serve as case managers for our employees, helping them navigate life's challenges, whether it is identifying appropriate childcare, arranging transportation, finding new housing, or connecting them to resources inside and outside of Loretto. And I think the last piece of stabilization work that we've done is really around succession planning and looking at those single points of failure within the organization, those individuals who are the single subject matter expert. And we have begun to identify 2 deep for all of our critical leadership roles, as well as those single points of failure, and have begun to either develop internal talent or identify where we need to get people from the outside to give us additional bench strength, which, to Nick's point, we think is going to be so crucial as we move out of the pandemic and move forward into the future.
That's excellent. And you talked about how receptive your staff was to these new programs. Are you getting that feedback? Are you surveying the staff, or you have, okay.
Yeah, so our staff have been really positive because the changes we've made were really guided by the employee engagement surveys and the pulse surveys that we have been doing all along for the last several years. And so the things that we put into place, the manager training, largely came from our managers who said, I need more resources, I need better support. And the work that we've done in HR, in recruiting, for example, was really driven by employees. And so as one example, in our recruiting function, we reduced the time to fill on our key roles by 2 weeks, which is really important to those managers who are waiting for staff to show up, but is also really important to their coworkers and the individual who's coming into the role who's waiting to get their first paycheck. So we've had a lot of very positive buy-in, and that's typically how we make change here at Loretto, is really in a grassroots fashion.
That's excellent. Is there any other challenge or any specific area that you'd like to emphasize with our audience today in your overall, strategy? Go ahead.
I think that, long-term care is typically known as an 80 to 100% turnover industry, right? We have very high turnover. And here at Loretto, it's considerably less. Our turnover is about 50%, but each of those individuals that turn over represents $7,000 in hiring and recruiting and training new staff. So we've really focused on those things that are important to our employees to keep them here at Loretto. And some of the programs that we've developed are around training and progressing personally and professionally in their careers. So we had the first federally registered LPN apprenticeship program in the country, federally registered with DOL. And that's been, we've had that program for about 5 years. We've graduated 100 LPNs. And it's an earn as you learn model. So people receive a stipend and they work 1 shift a week while they're in school. And in 11 months, once they pass their NCLEX exam, they effectively almost double their income. And so that's been a very popular program. We also have a frontline caregiver advancement project, which has nationally recognized certifications that fit into very clearly laid out career ladders. and with negotiated wage increases, because we are a union organization. And we found that that has been very helpful too, because the number one and two things that we hear from employees that they're looking for in an organization is they're looking for ways, very clear ways, to progress personally and professionally in their careers, to better care for the people they love. And the second thing that people are looking for is the right culture, which has been defined to us by our employees as a feeling of belonging, right? I belong at Loretto. I'm seen, I'm heard, and I'm valued here for who I am. And so we found that those have been very helpful in stemming turnover issues.
That's excellent. Thank you so much, Kim.
Thank you.
Some great programs. I mean, innovation is the key, right? I mean,
It is absolutely
you have
the
to
key.
really think out of the box and figure out, different ways to address those challenges. So I'd like to go to our next topic and speak to Allison Berwin, the Regional Vice President at National Healthcare Corporation. So Allison, thank you for joining us. I want you to just, we're going to talk about some of the recommended critical areas of focus for the team and just sort of highlighting a core set of competencies. And I know that Kim alluded to some of them. So why don't we start with you and start with you describing your role in the organization and how leadership actually fits into the strategy at National Healthcare Corp.
Yeah, thanks so much, Kevin. I mean, I think a lot of what all the panels are going to hit on are going to be constant themes today. But I've been a partner, we call our employees partners of NHC for 29 years. And I'm one of the regional vice presidents. And I like to say I'm a byproduct of growing our own mentality of promoting from within. I started out in dietary and, had a desire to build my career, and I was blessed enough that NHC gave me that opportunity. So now I have the privilege of working with our HR department and focused on retention. And I also head up our AIT program for the company. But I could tell you our strategy, Kevin, for leadership has existed for over 40 years with the company. We've got a great organization that the leaders knew that we had to take the time to develop our frontline supervisors. And so, like I said, for the past 40 years, we've had a leadership development program for all of our frontline supervisors, as well as administrators, director of nursing, et cetera. And it's an off-site class training.
Okay.
And so with that being said, we've adapted the program a little bit. And in fact, I'm going to talk about this a little bit more. But really, these core competencies have not changed in over 40 years. I think we've put more stock in some of them, especially as a result of the past few years. But, overall, I'm going to go ahead and spout off a few of the key focus areas that we want our leaders to really hone in on. Number one, and Dr. Townsend hit on it, nail on the head, commitment to our culture. We need to know, what are we about? What is our commitment to our mission, vision, values? And we need to have a clear understanding of our purpose. We expect our leaders to be servant leaders, and that's very important to our company and what we stand for. We have to walk the talk or lead by example. Again, we're here to serve others, our patients, our families, and our staff, and we have got to be out in the thick of it. And together, we always say together, everyone accomplishes more. communication as well, including active listening, communicating certain goals, expectations, goals that, again, the strategic plan of the company, as well as expectations for roles, inspiring, empowering, providing feedback. The leader's job is to motivate our staff to work together. Providing that ongoing feedback helps them be successful. I think it's about, we say we want everybody to belong. Absolutely, that's a key to retention. But it's also sometimes having to have those honest, transparent conversations of, I want you to be the best you can be, and this is what you're great at, this is how good you are, but here are some areas where I know you can really be more of an asset. A big key is recognition, showing appreciation, as well as far as providing that feedback. Something very near and dear to us is being firm and fair, and order, if you're consistent, you're gonna be fair, in order to foster that accountability. Everybody wants to be a part of a winning team, and we owe it to our staff to let them know what that looks like. Conflict resolution is another big area we all know, and we encountered it every day, if not 5 times a day during the pandemic. But watching that leader make tough decisions or resolving issues, that's what our staff are looking for with our leaders. Again, knowing that your staff, relationship building is key to your staff feeling like they're going to belong. And that can be done through intentional check-ins or rounding, and that helps develop trust and that sense of security. And really, that's I guess in a nutshell. And there's so many more, Kevin, but I think it's those are of course the key components that we feel are, and we hear it in feedback from our staff of what they appreciate about their leaders.
That's excellent. I'd like to ask you, since you said the leadership development and the principles behind that have been in place for over 40 years. What have you observed in just the last couple of years, given the healthcare crisis that we're in, and not just staffing, but we've got a rise in chronic conditions. Their jobs are tougher. You've got challenges with the regulatory changes and challenges like that. So have you looked at any of these core competencies or any of these challenges, and where you've had to make some significant changes to address these challenges?
Yeah, I think it, and Dr. Townsend hit on it already, it's using technology to our benefit. How do we work smarter, not harder, when we're all having to wear so many more different hats? But what data do our leaders need to be successful? What's that intelligence, right? That's going to help them provide excellent patient care. So I think it's and getting that feedback from them is critical. We talk about the clicks. How many clicks do I need to do in order to find what I'm looking for? So really trying to hone in on some of those processes to make life better for those efficient, that are on the firing line, so to speak.
Do you find that your leaders embrace data?
I do, as long as they know what they're looking at. And again, it's about us, training as far as why is this important? What value does it add? And, I think as a result of the pandemic, Kevin, what we've found is that, we've got to be more intentional with our training. And especially considering the fact that we have a whole new leadership team in some instances with our department heads. And so giving them the tools to be successful.
Okay, excellent. Well, thank you so much for that, Allison. Any significant areas you want to emphasize before we move to the next topic, like through your experiences, with the leadership development, and, you talked about how, those leadership principles were in place and how your staff is embracing all of that. Any provider listening to us today, what things do you want to highlight that are, from your perspective, were the most impactful?
Sure. I think none of us have time. And I know we've seen, as a result of the pandemic, we've got to get back to these core principles, values that, trainings that we couldn't do during the pandemic. And I think it's, rebooting some of this, but I think what's key is to really make the time to provide this leadership development. I know there's no time, but I think it's the value that it adds, and the fact that your staff will really appreciate the fact that you are setting aside time in order to do this is a huge commitment and speaks volumes.
That's excellent. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Other panelists, any comments on some of those core competencies? Allison talked about, National Healthcare Corporation. Any other core competencies to mention to our audience? Excellent. Thank you so much. So we'll move into our next topic, and Doug Olson from Vision Center. We're going to explore leadership development opportunities from both an internal and an external perspective or approaches. So hi, Doug. How are you?
Hey, good. I'll just start out. CEO, President of the Vision Center Leadership Development for Aging Services. Our primary focus is to expand and enhance senior living educational programs at universities across the country. I'm not going to get into all the details because there's a website and some other information, but I'll speak to both Allison and Dr. Townsend's comments. I mean, I think one of the cool things that we've sometimes gloss over is this next generation of leaders is really interested in some of the things that we talk about. I don't think we're public enough about what we do because I think we talk internally, which is awesome, but I think we need to kind of reframe the perspective about senior living leadership and what a wonderful opportunity is. This next generation, when you talk about using data information, they're all over that. This next generation is all about wanting to make a purpose, wanting to make a difference in the community, love that sense of purpose. I mean, this is a very attractive field to them. And I think we need to be singing from the rooftops on some of this stuff. I think the emphasis also never to forget kind of why they're doing what they're doing, taking care of people's parents and grandparents. That really resonates with that next generation. And when I talk about next generation, I mean, I'm talking about what you're doing internally. The next generation of leaders love to work for companies that have professional development opportunities in place. That's one of the things they look for. They look at websites to see if they can see enough leadership development opportunity with that company to go and move to the next step. There's all kinds of things like that going on. I would also say that from my perspective, the next generation of leaders also are really looking for the right access points and career pathway points to get into this field and how to move along in this field. So one of the things we're doing is really looking at, kind of not only how can we share best practices about what internal organizations are doing, and there's lots of examples of that. You've already heard a couple, you probably hear more from Nick. I would suggest that we need to be, COVID amplified this issue for everybody in the country, not just senior living. I mean, everybody's struggling to find employees. But it's amplified the issue. We lost a lot of people. We're losing a lot of people. That's the honest to God truth. People are tight. It's been a challenge. So we've seen some earlier exits, and some have been, wanting to stick through to make sure they've been through it with their team. But some of the initial predictions, and we have a demand and supply study, I mean, 200,000 leaders short by the year 2030. That's a big number. And so we have to approach it from multiple fronts, and that includes, and I'm talking really about leadership at the site level. I agree with everybody what they said, but we're really focused on administrators, community leaders, that portfolio of people in those occupations. And, one of the things that we're doing is trying to figure out how to work with universities, and that's at undergrad, grad, mid-career. I mean, we need to approach this from every angle. It's not, internal leadership is certainly having that bench strength, but we also need new leaders in the field. And we definitely need their energy and excitement. And that, like I said, is undergrad, grad, mid-career, lots of different ways people are pulling people into their organizations. One of the things that we focus on at the Vision Center is really to have partnerships coordinated between universities and providers. We're really playing a role where Rutgers, we have 7 different providers coming together to make that program strong. It can't, not saying that every provider probably has different university relationships, that's great. But when it comes to building a strong senior living leadership program, you need to have the mass of providers and students to make it work. And so we're doing some of that, and actually quite a bit of that these days. We're also kind of promoting and kind of reframing how people talk about the senior living field. We've got a couple things going on right now just to kind of really focus on how do we attract that high school, college, master's level student into the field and why. And we've had great success with developing some things around that. We're also
Can you elaborate
really
on
at
that
the
as
right.
far as finding that talent, that level, that caliber?
Say that
Can
again.
you elaborate on that, finding that caliber of leader that you're looking for? How do you
Yeah,
find
I'll just-
talent?
Yeah, I'll say it like this. I think one of the things that really attracts people once they find the senior living field and they get touched by it, they get hooked. One of the big hooks, it's kind of a secret sauce for our academic field and for the provider field, is that paid field experience. That is one of the great opportunities that we should be taking even greater advantage of. The Vision Center actually is going to be doing a campaign this fall, lifting that up for the public and how that really works well for our field and how important it is. If someone is coming through an academic program and come into a job where they've got 1 year field experience already, they're in a significant advantage for a really good career. So we really are focusing a lot of resources right now on the field experiences, the importance of them. We're developing access points. We're also kind of finding out where universities and students find out about these. We've got progressive organizations that are working with us. But that, I think, the paid field experience, whether it's an AIT or a residency or an internship, those are the things that really are very different and is a great way. All of us know we need to be thoughtful and invest in that next generation of leaders and making sure that, when we find them, that we find the right paths and opportunities for them. And I think everybody that is on this call has already got some kind of perspective about the importance of nurturing that leadership so they're at the right place at the right time, and we want them to stay.
Mhm.
We don't want to move them into a position too quick. But what I will tell you is this field, COVID only amplified it. This field definitely needs to have a much stronger presence at universities across the country. It is absolutely, I wouldn't say embarrassing, but it's absolutely not in the right place that it should be right now. These shouldn't be second choice occupations. With the demographics and everything we have going on, Kevin, right now,
Mhm.
there's going to be so many opportunities for people going into this field, and some of them will be in leadership, some of them will be in a variety of other ways that they can support and help this field. But
So Doug,
yeah,
for those providers that are listening in here who haven't had a lot of experience working with, the universities, what would you recommend? What are some of the key things that they should focus on working with these universities?
well, we have put together a couple of resources for providers and universities. My first suggestion would be to find the low-hanging fruit where you can collaborate with the university. It's every partnership requires relationship. From my perspective, I think that There are a variety of ways to get connected with the university. I would also, I mean, I'm not here to promote the Vision Center, but we are definitely moving forward with a lot of resources and working with the progressive organizations in the country to kind of make sure the connections with the universities. We put together, one of the hard things from providers is, what university should I work with? You know, that's a question I get all the time, because they're just not sure, you know, where should we invest our time and talent, because it's, you know, it's a process. And we put together a digital directory for providers based on where the universities that are inspired to do leadership are already doing leadership, where they can connect with, you know, the state execs from AHCA and Leading Age. I mean, one of the other ways to really kind of, this is low hanging fruit, invite students from programs to state conferences. That sounds so simple, but it's not done routinely. And it's such an easy way to get talent exposed to the joys and benefits of senior living leadership and the wonderful career it can be. And they also go back and help grow programs, because they get excited when they talk to a Nick or Dr. Townsend or Allison, and they go back to their university and say, wow, did you know? But, you know, I think some of it is to just be strategic. Like I said, we put together some resources, and Kevin, you know, at the end, we're happy to send out kind of information. I think there's a lot to cover in this webinar, so I don't want to take any more time than I have. I'm happy to interject again when we get to Q&A at the end, but you know, from my perspective, that's kind of, you know, we've got a lot of great things going on. We just had a symposium last week, and kind of the momentum has turned into action, and action is going to turn into success and results. And I obviously am going to circle back with all the panelists too and say, hey, how do you want to be involved? I'm kidding. But
Yeah, sure.
well, I've watched, I mean, there are a lot of great organizations in this space right now.
Yeah, they really are. I think it's they're making a difference too, and that's what I like.
The one thing I'll just end with is, we do need to reframe how the public views senior living leadership. I know we've all talked about this from a variety of fronts. For this next generation, to get them into, you asked how to attract them. I think we have to change the message. I think the message has to be, this is a great career that provides a lot of variety, and you can make a significant difference for people in the world. And, you know, I think we understate the importance of this profession to our country.
Good point. Thank you, Doug.
Yep.
So, Nick, let's talk about our fourth topic, and, you know, other panelists can weigh in as we go through this, but we really want to just talk about, you know, some suggested practical tips and some insights to move forward, you know, at your, you know, own community, you know, especially when you hear about a lot of opportunities, a lot of innovative ways to, you know, strengthen the leadership team, and a lot of the programs we talked about today. What are some tips that you'd like to share? But you can start with just describing your role in the organization and how it fits in the strategy at Pruitt Health.
First of all, I'm pretty impressed with the folks that got on here for no other reason but to get better and get smarter. So congrats to you all for taking the first step to do it. I'm guessing nobody put you up to it, so great work. I'll start with a couple things. Pruitt Health, we're based in Atlanta, Georgia. I would like to say we're probably pretty similar to NHC. We offer a variety of different services in North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida. We have 110 nursing facilities. We do hospice, home health, pharmacy, medical supply. I could keep going. I would say the coolest thing that we've started recently is the ISNP plan. I know I heard the special needs plans you did prior to that. I think that is a real value add, not only for the patients, but for the industry as a whole, as we go into different payment models and so on. And so, you know, if there was one thing I'd like to highlight from that, and that would be it. I did work at a hospital, my first job out of grad school, and the chief medical officer always used to say, be brief, be smart, be gone. And so I'll try to sort of live up to his motto right now. But, you know, when I'm talking about, I'll try to break this down as easy as I can without trying to get too technical. And for me, I think some of the most important things as you're trying to fit leadership excellence into your day-to-day. And we talk about this a lot at my organization. We have about 12,000 employees on our side, and we break things down into three things. So we're trying to get better at three things as an administrator, as a vice president, whatever it might be every day. And education, coaching, and then operational excellence. And so for me, there's a quote by, I think it was Eisenhower, that I love. It's, doesn't matter whether you're 6 or 78, as soon as the day you stop learning, you're old. And so we're always trying to continually learn around here. We have a book club for the folks that are in my purview. We just recently read the 5 levels of leadership. I don't know if anybody's familiar with that, with Maxwell, and I think that really kind of hit home to me. And then I come from a sports background. I played basketball at a very, very small school in college, so I'm not looking for any accolades here. I'm guessing anybody could have probably made it. But I really like to fit into those sorts of things. And John Wooden, I don't know if everybody is familiar with the coach at UCLA. He's got just so much stuff that it's hard to get into right here. But he's got just the practicality of what he talks about when he talks about player development. I would encourage everybody to take a look at, he calls it the keys to player development. And there's 5 steps to it. I don't know if we have time to get into it here, but it's just in terms of leadership excellence, knowing where we want to try to go and then coaching people appropriately to try to get there. And I think those 2 would be some good reads if you have some time to look at it. One of the things I've also encouraged, we're talking about this post-pandemic environment, a lot of our job responsibilities changed over the last 2 or 3 years, whether it was reporting, whether it was we need to get more PPE, whether it was vaccine requirements, all these multitude of things that have changed and now, luckily, for the most part, have gone away. I don't know everybody else's states and the requirements, but for the most part, I would say we're back to normal. I strongly encourage our administrators and DHSs to sit down and spend some time, and we call our DONs, directors of nursing, we call them directors of health services. So if you're trying to follow along at home, that's what I'm talking about. But spend some time in thought and really think about what are your core job responsibilities, right? And what are you doing right now? And I think in many instances, and look, out of sheer necessity, we had to change those job descriptions on the fly. But in this environment, when we're trying to hire people, when we're trying to retain people, when we're trying to do all these other things, is it worth the administrators in DHS's time to be doing these mundane tasks that probably aren't part of our core job responsibilities? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I don't have the answer to everything. I do know that as leaders, we need to sit down and think through those things so that we can take the time to model and coach and do the things that we need to do moving forward. And then for me, another real practical thing that we've been talking about with our teams to judge how we are in that evolution, getting back to, I think I heard Allison refer to, getting back to the core principles, getting back to our roots is we have started grading MEEP 2, and you got to be brutally honest with yourself. A couple things. Meetings. I go to a meeting. Is this an A meeting, a B meeting? If you're at a meeting and you're going to rank it a C, you probably wasted your time having that meeting. And so we got to make sure that we're focusing on the right things. And there are a couple criteria which we focus, were there clear outcomes, was there follow-up, those sorts of things. And we're ranking our meetings to make sure that we're having good meetings and providing good leadership. And then, in follow-up to that, I obviously have in my role, and I'm sure Dr. Townsend and Allison, you're looking at monthly reviews to make sure we're hitting our financial metrics, to make sure we're achieving our clinical outcomes and those sorts of things. And so, for me, it's grading our teams and being honest. And quite honest, I have my direct reports grade me. I'm sure that to flatter me, they might give me a little bit better than I probably deserve. But I think it's a good exercise because it allows an opportunity to say, hey, how can I serve you a little bit better? And, here are the things that, you should probably work on before we come back and meet again. And so for me, leadership is an evolving topic. When you call me, I was excited. I think I told you we've been talking about this one ad nauseum because
Right.
I'm not going to dig through it health. I'm not going to hire 1,000 people, 2,000. We can create some systems. I think Dr. Townsend talked about it. We can create some awesome We have a CNA ladder program, which I'm really proud of. So we can help assist in doing those things, but at the end of the day, it's the people on this call feeling good enough about themselves, feeling confident in their decision making that are going to get their particular organization to where they want to go. And so those are some of the things that right now that we're focusing on our teams.
That's excellent. Thank you so much, Nick. Any other comments on some practical tips from the other panelists? Anything you guys would like to add?
I think something Doug mentioned about raising the bar too, and having our profession looked at a little bit differently. I would also argue we kind of got to do it for ourselves. I mean, but these last 2 or 3 years have been downright impossible.
Brutal.
I mean, I've got a couple days that I won't even mention on here because the only thing I knew was get my car and go help. And so that's what we did, but we've got to get ourselves out of that mindset. I mean, what we do is valuable. We do a very good job doing it. And we have a whole bunch of talented people doing it. And so we got to look for the good. We got to train our brains. At HCA, probably 10 years ago, I became a huge follower of his. His name's Sean Aker, and he was the Science of Happiness. And he gave a great presentation, stuck with me. It was in San Antonio, I remember, but it's got to train your brains to look for the positive in the world, and making sure that when you're focusing on that that will raise the bar. Success is on the other opposite side of happiness. So we all have to be happy in what we're doing and where we're going and what we're advancing. And if we can do that, I guarantee you we can keep raising the bar and getting better. And so I guess that would be my last comment before, if anybody else had anything before you turn it over to the rest of the questions.
That's excellent. Thank you so much, Nick. I think we're at the hour, 10 minutes before the top of the hour, and we want to open it up, Penny, to the audience for Q&A. And as Penny mentioned earlier, you can use the Q&A feature and put your questions there, and we'll field those questions during the session.
One thing, as you're looking for that question that Nick and the other two panelists brought up, I think the importance of mentoring is almost underscored some days. The ACHCA has got a program. I think there's a lot of good programs within organizations and associations. And I just think there's nothing worse than getting someone excited about this field and having them leave because they haven't had that mentor to help them get through those first few years. And honestly, my experience is once you lose them forever. They go down a different, and we can't afford, and I think that I'm sure each of these organizations, and I know across the country, mentoring is one of those things that, formal training is great. Leadership development is great. Expanding universities programs is great, but we do have to have that really key focus on mentoring and making sure that we have people available to do that. And it's just one of those threads that I've seen over and over and over again.
I appreciate that, Doug. And I think that that's a huge part of this leadership puzzle is the mentoring piece. And sometimes I think that we kind of leave that out. And it's one of the things I know that it's not as applicable to the work that's directly done in senior care and long-term care organizations. But with the pandemic and this whole world of being virtual, it's one of the things that can get lost since since people aren't always seeing each other all the time like they did before. So I think to be really intentional about that is quite important as we have young people coming into the field. And you're exactly right. We need people coming into the field.
Excellent.
So we have some thanks for a great webinar. And seeing growth in the university space. We have a question. Someone has spoken to several new NHAs who reported they had a more abbreviated AIT program. The question is, are you making additional efforts to reinforce those?
And I mean,
Yeah.
Nick sounds like he's ready to go, so.
Yeah, I can say something here that I don't know if the other operators experienced. And I know NHC has a reputation, at least where we are, for providing, a really good AIT program. We like to think we do. But one of the things I did notice as we were putting people out in buildings, they may have only gone through maybe a complaint survey or an abbreviated survey, or perhaps it was an infection control survey. And so it was a great question. We talked about this just yesterday, actually, in terms of providing a little bit more insight. Now, we're lucky we have, 20 buildings in a 2-hour radius. So I can send people to get different experience. But yes, we are trying to make sure that we are reinforcing and getting back to, we had some kind of remote learning and in-person learning. But, one of the things key takeaways for me, and you all may want to look, some of these folks may not even been through a real rigorous annual survey. And so when they go through it, it may be a challenge that first time around. That's just something we're noticing.
Yeah, I can certainly add to that, Kevin. I mean, our program at NHC is a 24-month AIT program, so which is longer than most. But I agree with Nick. I mean, even with the 24-month program, some of our centers haven't had survey in 3 years. So, aside from the infection control or complaint survey. So, we are pretty, firm on that 24 months. But again, things happen, and sometimes somebody's ready to go before that 24 months, and we make that happen.
Okay.
And for us,
And
New York State is fairly prescriptive in terms of what AIT, what the administrator in training needs. They approve a set program, so we don't have a lot of flexibility there. But the way we have been supporting new administrators through survey is we have survey SWAT teams that come in, and these are experts across the system. Whenever there's a survey, they drop in and they assist the new administrator or the existing administrator with the survey process. So having those extra hands and eyes during survey time, particularly people with deep expertise in that, has been extremely helpful to our survey performance.
Excellent.
Yeah, I would say most of the providers I've talked to love the fact that 51 states have 51 different rules and regulations around licensure. That's a little bit facetious, right? I mean, I think we need to start asking some bigger questions too, because, if there's obstacles for people getting into the field, that's not going to keep working for us. And I don't want to go on a live comment on a recorded webinar how I really feel about that, but we need to start thinking about the profession and access to the profession in a different kind of way, and making sure that it's not burdensome to get into this field.
Got it. Makes sense.
I'm gonna wrap up because I know 2 o'clock is coming pretty quick, and that was one of my responsibilities. I want to thank everybody on the panel. I've learned a lot again. I hope everybody that joined the panel learned a ton. Advancing excellence is all about trying to share best practices and collaboration across the spectrum of services. And I know that Kevin and I are proud to be significantly involved with that. Penny, thanks for your leadership. The panelists we had today, I think, provided some exceptional insights. One of the things that people talked about was stability of leadership being important, and we believe that that's very much true. That's how we get good workforce culture. That's how we get good outcomes. That's how we take care of people well. Another significant person and role in that is the Director of Health Services or Clinical Leadership, or the DON. And you can expect sometime in September to have a panel that's a little more focused on the needs in clinical leadership. All of us know how important that is. And that triad of leadership with the administrators and clinical leaders and medical directors is significantly driving performance in organizations. And I think Advancing Excellence recognizes that. We look forward to seeing more information about that. Once again, if you weren't able to ask a question, I'm sorry, but I think all the panelists have agreed to make sure that their information is available for personal contact with any questions. And last but not least, this session will be recorded and line within a few days on the Advancing Excellence website. So being a former faculty member, I know starting on time and ending on time is a great way to get good results and good reviews. So with that, Penny, if you have any last things you want to say, or Kevin, go for it, but we're right at the nth hour.
Well, I just want to thank all of you, all of the panelists. It was a pleasure speaking to you and hearing from you and getting to know all of you. So I really appreciate your leadership and, all of the insights to, this real need, right, in our industry. And I think more of this is only going to make things better. So we definitely want to continue the series. So thank you all for your time and your insights.
And thank you to all of you who attended, and to Doug and Kevin for organizing the panel as well. If you want more information about Advancing Excellence, go to our website at advancingexcellence.org. I believe the link is in the chat, and we're always looking for new members. So if you're interested in the work that Advancing Excellence does, and you want a platform to gather with other leaders in this space from across the country and from very diverse perspectives, please check us out. We hope that everyone has a great day, and thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Take care, everyone.